Good morning.
Good morning.
You all chose to come to church today on this gorgeous day. Thank you. I appreciate that, and I honor your time. And you all who have been here before and have met Reverend Joe T. know that that's just the way it works. When Joe T. calls, you just kind of say yes. So here I am, and it's my joy and honor to be here with you. It has been a while since I have been here with you. I know you've experienced some changes and lots of good and interesting things in your life, continuing to call in more good and more grace. And I too have had similar experiences, as Jerry was kind enough to share. Since I've been with you, I did indeed complete my PhD. It's in leadership studies and ethical and creative leadership, with a focus on creativity, diversity, and social justice. And my work is the intersection of leadership and spirituality. So leaders who are not necessarily in that place of, isn't this wonderful and I did it, but isn't this wonderful and I helped co-create this. So, excuse me, it's a joy and an honor, and it's really good to be done with that work. I'm trying to figure out what adults do with free time now. And, if you've got any ideas, Jer, I'm still game. The other part of that is I successfully completed my ordination panel in July and was able to celebrate a beautiful ordination ceremony at the end of September. And again, just a joy and an honor. For those of you who may not be familiar, in our teaching, we finish a fully accredited master's program in consciousness studies, and then we work 3 years full-time as a minister before we're eligible for ordination. It's like a practicum or an extended internship. They just want to make really sure we're not hurting people in the work that we're doing, and thankfully I passed that test. So, excuse me. And what turned out to be our last visit with my beloved's mom, she was 89 years old with her tongue planted firmly in her cheek. She said, "Rick, I'm so happy. You're marrying a Jewish doctor." And Rick, of course, said, "Well, thanks, Mom, but he's not that kind of Jew and he's not that kind of doctor." So we continue to work through that. So as ministers, we get lots of ideas and lots of conversation around themes. So there were any number of things that were percolating for today. We have the theme for the March issue of Science and Mind magazine. Centers for Spiritual Living also has a monthly theme. I happen to be working on the June issue of the magazine, so I'm kind of tied up in that theme. We have a theme for the month and a theme for the year, and so honestly, I got a little wound up in what theme I was supposed to talk about today. So, excuse me. So, officially, this CSL monthly theme is spiritual living through education and continuous improvement. And of course, that just rolls off the tongue, and y'all are going to walk out of here and know exactly what to do with that, as am I, as speaking about that. But what I want to share with you, I shared the kind of personal education piece for me, and the improvement piece that I would want to offer you. This is the completely biased sales pitch. On each one of your chairs, you see the flyer and the card. Rick and I are hosting a 90th anniversary celebration cruise for Science and Mind magazine. We leave out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida in January. We have 2 full days at sea. We stop in ports in Costa Maya and Cozumel and Grand Cayman before returning to Fort Lauderdale. And honestly, with this being the 90th anniversary year for the magazine, we have a lot going on. And we invited people into a number of celebrations and events and activities. And you know what it's like being a member of community. I really wanted to leave more than party hats at the end of our 90th anniversary year. So once we sell out the 400, bless you, thank you. Once we sell out the 400 spaces on the cruise, not only will those people be guaranteed a roaring good time, but it will also create an endowment of almost $100,000 to support Science and Mind magazine into its next 90 years and beyond. So, take a look at the card if you're called. Reserve your room now. You can get your room, only $250. I'll save it all year until about October, just before we leave. And we're hosting an informational meeting. For those of you who have not had the opportunity to join us at our international headquarters for Centers for Spiritual Living, this is your invitation. It's on Sunday, April 2nd at 1 p.m. We're going to talk about the cruise. It's not going to be any more than an hour. If you want more information, give us a shout. It's also going to be available on Zoom for those of you who are interested in joining us via technology, and it will be recorded as well. So, enough of the commercial. Out of all of those wonderful themes, the thing that was really percolating for me today is the next frontier. What does that look like for us as individuals? We know that we are whole, perfect, and complete right here and right now in this moment. And there's a lot of interesting energy, be it political, be it interpersonal, whatever that looks like, whatever that sounds like, whatever that feels like. How can we navigate that? How can we be grounded in who we are and open at the top, as Dr. Holmes said? I know this is going to go away and be just perfect.
It's the fire. It's the smoke.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
So were there any Star Trek fans in the room? Any Trekkies? Yay! Awesome. You would have loved Rick's talk last week at New Dawn in Aurora. He had an actual transponder. It was really cool. So since he did that, we're not doing that today. Has anybody heard of Up With People?
Yes.
The musical group that used to travel around the world. So those of you who may be familiar with me know that that was an important part of my life. And my computer hates it when I type in Up With People, people. Like, redundant, it's bright red, you're not supposed to be doing this, are you sure you want to do this? Well, that's what Up With People, people are called, is Up With People, people, or Uppies. So I'm going to share a little bit about that experience with you and what that looked like for me. So I got accepted to travel in the group right out of high school, saw a show in Mackey Auditorium in Boulder, thought, gosh, that looks really fun and really interesting. So I interviewed, I got accepted, I traveled for 2 years, lived with host families in 3 continents, in 8 countries, traveled with 100 people from 23 countries, really had a blast. And 30 years later, I went back to work for the organization as Vice President of Global Communication. So it continues to be in my blood, it continues to be in my DNA and who I am. And one of the things that I really appreciate is the message in the music. We performed a 2-hour musical show wherever we traveled in the world. In my year, that song happened to be a song called Moonrider. And it was based on the thoughts of astronaut Eugene Cernan, the commander of Apollo 17. Commander Cernan is the last man to leave footprints on the moon. And this song is his reflection of standing on the moon and looking back at the Earth. And so, it struck me. I've had the honor of having Eugene in my life for the past 40 years and seeing him at events and so forth as we continue to support the organization. And he just made his transition a couple of months ago at 82, and this song was sung and was a part of his memorial. And what I would share with you is, it is an analogy for the work that we want to do, for stepping into our own greatness, for claiming that which is ours, and releasing that which is simply not ours to do. So the song is called Moonrider, and the first phrase, the first stanza is, the painter tries to paint it, the poet tries to say it, the philosopher tries to convey the meaning to your mind. But here I am, 100 million miles away. One human being, one human seeing it for the first time. Now, what that speaks to me about is the creativity of who we are as human beings. Rick and I had the chance to be with Don Miguel Ruiz, the author of The 4 Agreements, and his 2 sons for a 3-hour session yesterday. And one of Don Miguel's primary points is there are 7 billion people on the planet, and each one of us is president of our own country, and sometimes we're good at diplomatic relations with other beings, and sometimes we're not, right? So of those 7 billion people on the planet, we each have a different interpretation of the divine. We each have a different interpretation of what our higher power looks like. Maybe it's Jesus, maybe it's Buddha, maybe it's love, maybe it's nature. Maybe I'm not on a spiritual path, which we know is absolutely okay. Who am I to tell you what to do or what to believe? I encourage you to ask questions, and that's one of the many things that I love about this teaching. So it is from that place of creativity, whenever I try to explain my concept of the divine, I do reasonably well with words otherwise, but I'm at a loss. What does that look like? How do I wrap my head and my mind and my words around that? So however all of those people try to portray what it might look like being on the earth looking back at the moon, so too for me in my spirituality. I continue to be on that journey to put my human mind and my human words around that. Captain Cernan was quoted as saying, "America must find a way to instill in its children the desire to launch expeditions into the unknown, to breach what today seems impractical or even impossible." And isn't that what we're about when we're in our creativity? You know, the other thing that I really appreciated exploring is the difference between big C and little c creativity. Now, little c creativity is getting a shot of a different syrup in your latte with your morning coffee, right? It's maybe taking a different way to work to create some different synapses in your brain. It's taking your dog on a different walk around the neighborhood. Big C creativity is mapping the human genome. Big C creativity is being in that space of knowing that you're growing and changing and evolving and needing a new space for Center for Spiritual Living Boulder Valley. And big C creativity is standing on the moon, looking back at the earth and trying to put words around that. So the second piece, you know, if we look at creativity and wholeness and oneness as what is ours to do, the second piece there is that of wholeness. And another line that I just love from this same song is, "I see the world without any borders, without any fighting, without any fear." Because I'm 100 million miles away. So I can't discern, I can't make those distinctions as much as my human mind would want to. So what do we know about fear? Without any borders, without any fear. We all have our favorite acronyms. I have a couple. The first one is forget everything and run, which is an option. Maybe that has served us before. I invite you that it may not serve you as well, that you're waking up and you're a conscious being. The second one is false evidence appearing real. I don't know anything about it, and I get to get all wound up about it and decide that it's bad and decide that I don't want it, and. So, you know, another story that I would share with you, I had the opportunity to do some service work in Kenya about 10 years ago now, and there were 20 of us there for about 3 weeks. And as soon as we walked in, this is a whole other series of talks, but as soon as we walked in, I had the opportunity to meet a giant soul with short legs. And I thought he was probably about 1.5 at the time. And he was decked out from head to toe. His shirt and his vest and his slacks and his belt and his socks and his brand new boots. And he was standing in his crib whimpering when I kind of walked through the house where he was staying and in his room. And all of his, as they call them, all of his 100 brothers and sisters were there to support him, and they all loved him, and they said, you know, that's just Kevin, that's what Kevin does. And I was just having one of those moments, and I just reached in and picked him up and held him. And I didn't know if I was supposed to. I didn't know if I had rules. I didn't know if either one of us had shots or needed shots. And that's not where my mind went. So I just picked him up and I held him. And he stopped crying, and I almost started crying. And so I carried him that whole day, whatever we were doing in the orphanage. I was holding him, and he was holding on to me. It wasn't a strangulation hold, it wasn't a desperation hold, we were just there. And so then we had the opportunity to, much like this, to participate in the service. The orphanage happened to be run by the Catholic Church. And so it was a Catholic Mass. And he sat on my lap, and he never spoke, he never whimpered, he never made another sound. But when everybody started the clapping in the community songs, he clapped along in perfect time. And I learned very early on that that day was actually Kevin's first birthday. So all of his brothers and sisters, his 100 brothers and sisters around the orphanage, were all coming up to him and loving him and hugging him and patting him and wishing him a happy birthday. And he just wanted to stay with me. And I wanted to stay with him. So we were together, I'm guessing, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 hours. Never sat him down, never knew that my arm was, a little tired at that point. It was irrelevant until the nurse came to get him because it was time for his medication. Kevin happened to be HIV positive, and he was on a very strict regime of drugs that were saving his life. And so I let him go, and I knew we would see each other again. So fast forward, I was at a point in my life where I could, I was considering, do I want to adopt him? We had this extraordinary connection, clearly had been together in previous lives. Something well beyond my wildest imagination was happening. So could I adopt him? Could I make his life better? Through my particular unique lens, right? Everything that I am, yes, I could probably make his life better. And it would uproot him from his 100 siblings. It would uproot him from the country that he knew. It would uproot him from the culture that he knew. And it would make me feel good, right? It would, help me put away a lot of my white male guilt. And, we could deal with that. And yet what I got to was, he was exactly where he was supposed to be, doing exactly what he was supposed to be doing, as was I. So rather than being in fear for myself or for him, I get to continue to bless him, now a happy and healthy teenager, and know that his life is glorious. So what are you afraid of today? Is it an interpersonal situation? Is it an outside situation? And maybe it's a big fear, and rightfully so. And maybe it's a small, nuanced fear. I invite you to be in that. How much of that are you creating yourself and just swirling around in it? And maybe it's time to let that go. So that is wholeness, and that is the release of fear, knowing that I am whole, perfect, and complete, as is every being on the planet. And the third piece of that I would suggest, that has been mentioned so beautifully, both in words and in song, thank you, is that of oneness. The Dalai Lama, what an extraordinary being, and I continue to learn whenever I reach into any of his readings or his material or his consciousness. And one of my favorite messages from him is, my philosophy is simple. My philosophy is oneness. And that is where we are at as a teaching. And it's really simple, and sometimes it's all in the implementation, right? Well, we can all be one, but not those people, or not, we've all been in that space. So the invitation is in oneness. And once more, I refer to